What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the First Class Podcast. We have Steve Kazitsky, aka NFTBark, here tonight. Very special guest. Been wanting to get him on here for a while. Little did he know. So welcome, Steve. How are you doing tonight?
Doing well. Honored to be here. Honored to be asked. I appreciate y'all because I live in the NFT world, but what y'all cover in crypto, it's awesome. You make it understandable. You break it down. The piece you did on Exxon the other day, it's such a complex topic, and you broke it down in such an understandable way. And you know, the fact that you're both also like super athletes, it's like leave some for the rest of us, please.
Appreciate you, man. Appreciate you. That's love. Well, hey, I gotta just come off the top. Like, how do you get the name NFTBark?
That's a good question. And actually, nobody ever asks me that. So when I got into NFT a while back, a lot of people are you just like dogs. And don't get me wrong, I got a 90-pound Labrador Retriever. I love to wrestle with him. Like, it's great. I love dogs. But like the way it came about was like when I first got into NFTs, I was like, look, there's no media going on at all with these things. So I got into NFTs probably like, February, March last year in 2021. And I was like, you know what? Like, I want to find a site and a name that I can sort of brand in the NFT world. And so I like looked around on sites, and the like NFT news and all this other stuff was taken. And there was some really, there's some sites already set up. And I'm like, what if I made like a site called like NFTBark? Because it's kind of funny. Like, it can work. It kind of sounds like you're talking about news. And I never like actually made the site, but I just went with it. And then actually I pivoted a little bit because I also realized I'm like, look, like I'm not one that's going to hide behind sort of an identity and be anonymous. So actually my name is NFTBark, but like Steve is my Twitter name because I'm like, I want to be like the Steve in NFTs because it's early on. So that's sort of the origin of NFTBark. But like most people actually know me by my name because my name's been on there for a while. So yeah, so that's the origin of it. But nobody's ever really asked me that before, actually. And it never came to fruition that NFTBark site or email or whatever I was going to do with it.
That's crazy. That's a little Easter egg for the fan base, man.
I'm gonna say
people don't know those things.
I was gonna say, where's the bomb sound effect when you need it? You just drop some alpha. Some Steve alpha. No, but so I guess like since we got your name origin story, what's your NFT kind of origin story? Like what was your aha moment? Because I know just from being in was it Coffee with Captain in the mornings with you guys, which is how, we kind of formed our relationship. You talked a lot about how you used to work for Progressive, right? And you were in like PR or marketing for them. So like, when did you kind of get into like Web3 and NFTs and stuff like that?
Yeah, so that's exactly right. So my background is I've worked in PR and marketing for about 15 years. I led public relations at Progressive. I led recruitment marketing at Progressive because, believe it or not, getting someone to move to Cleveland when they have offers from Google to work for an insurance company isn't super easy. So I got to start their recruitment marketing practice. And then I led internal communications at Progressive, actually, when they sent everyone home for the pandemic, which was both challenging and rewarding, but awesome. Right before I got in NFTs, actually, I was working at Nestle, leading public relations for really anything you'd find in your freezer from them that you maybe don't know is Nestle. So like DiGiorno, Hot Pockets, Lean Cuisine, Stouffer's, that stuff. The way I got into NFTs, I was still at Nestle. I just started at Nestle. I was probably a few months in. And just for my background, I've always been like a really big sort of tech person. Like I've always been an early adopter. When I was in sixth grade, so I'm 38 years old. And when I was in sixth grade, I was like teaching myself HTML to do websites. And like my parents and everybody was like, that's stupid. Why does everybody need a website? Nobody needs a website. And like, I'm like, no, this is cool. And I was like, check out this email thing. They're like, but I can send a fax. And so like my parents and everybody would like FUD the internet basically. And so I used to do that. Then I was early and I did nothing with it, didn't capitalize. Then I was early in Web 2 also. So I was early on Facebook in college and I was on Twitter in 2009. And people were like, I don't care what anybody ate for breakfast. Why do I care about Twitter? And I'm like, no, you don't understand. Like the first reports, like I think one of the most seminal moments in communications is when the plane landed on the Hudson River in New York and the first reports came from Twitter. And I'm like, this is a communications tool. It's a connection point. But again, I capitalized nothing on that. So I decided I was going to swing the bat this time. I got into Web3 and NFTs. This is going to be probably like every single person you ever talk to, but through NBA Top Shot. My friends were talking about it. I heard it on some podcasts. I got in after the big pump. So I got in at like March, and was really interested in it. And I just, this idea of owning moments and digital ownership clicked for me. And the technology was just cool. The concept of ripping a pack was cool. And I really enjoyed it. And of course, then I got onto Twitter and I started jumping into these Twitter spaces and just listening. Everybody was so kind and so welcoming and just wanted me to learn that world. And I've been in crypto since like 2017, on and off, like not like super deep in it, not like you guys, but like been in it. And, I kind of made that connection point. And I've been talking about Ethereum and smart contracts being noteworthy since then, because I thought it was so interesting. So this was like this application that I was telling people was cool in like 2017. And I'm like, this is it. This is the tech. And so dove in head first, talked in a bunch of Twitter spaces, started getting sort of my bearings about me and meeting people. And then one day, all these people who were so kind to me and so friendly to me on Twitter, who taught me all this stuff, changed all their profile picture to these Bored Apes. And I'm like, what are those things? I got to get in that. Not because I thought it was going to go to the moon or be awesome, but because all my friends and people I had made changed it. I'm like, I need one of those. So a couple of weeks after launch, I got a Bored Ape and started diving in head first. Got it for about $1,000 at the time, and have dove in head first ever since. And then right around November, actually, it's kind of a crazy story. So NFT NYC was awesome last year. So I went to NFT NYC, which was like the NFT week at New York. And my buddy Scott, who I'd met through a couple NFT communities, he's a Harvard professor, and he sends me a DM the night before NFT NYC. And he's like, hey, I just got greenlit to write the first Harvard Business Review article on NFT. I'd like you to co-author it, but I understand you're going to New York City. Maybe you're going to have time. I'm like, Scott, bet. You tell me where I need to be. You tell me what I need to do. So I'm going out. I'm out till 3 a.m. at a Dead concert or whatever. And then I'm zipping back to my hotel room, editing thing, because we had to write it that week. That was like what they asked us. And our editor was a non-NFT person.
Hold on. You were able to function after a Dead concert?
Oh yeah. I don't think that was my best writing at the time, but I was doing NFT NYC was nuts, because it was like all these people that I've been friends with, basically, like this the same way I met Joanne, like, right, like we're friends. We've been talking for all this time, and now we're like face to face having conversation. It's like meeting those people in person was magical. So we're out all hours of the night, and then I come back and I have edits from Scott that I had to make. But yeah, it was awesome. Like we had an editor who was a non-NFT person, and then what was really cool is when we dropped that article, it wasn't just like we knew that like businesses and stuff would like it because it's HBR and they like that stuff. But the fact that the NFT community like accepted it and was like, yo, you guys did us proud. Like that was like one of my proudest moments. So after that, like I've just, started looking for jobs and, got my first job in Web3, actually, like one of these things over my shoulder. It's OCM. It's from MetaGood. It's an NFT project. And so MetaGood's like where I work now. Doing good and doing well is sort of their motto. So like an example of what we did there is like when Russia attacked Ukraine, we're like, look, we should do something because we can. So we paused some work we were doing on other stuff. We did a charity NFT. We raised $185,000 in about 2 weeks, donated that. So stuff like that's kind of what we do over there. But yeah, like I've just been sort of obsessed with Web3 and living it and breathing it since that sort of March date last year, and hasn't steered me wrong. And it's been honestly like, it's one of those things where like, I'm just having the time of my life right now,
Man, that's a crazy story. And I think there's so many entry points to different aspects of crypto, whether you're, freedom maximalist or you're in it for the tech or the community pulls you in. But that community watering hole that is Twitter Spaces, especially during 2021, when it was like, all right, we've been trapped inside for like a year and a half at this point, it was some of the most social interaction you were actually going to get. It was like kicking it with your virtual friends, talking about virtual goods that you trade with virtual strangers. Twitter Spaces, I feel like, had a huge impact on the explosion of, NFTs and crypto at large. It was big for me too, but I don't know. That's where you guys met.
Yeah.
I don't even know how I ended up in this Twitter space, but coffee with Captain in the morning. And now like I'm a familiar face, and I came on, I think Steve, I think we were talking about Top Shot at the time, or maybe it was AllDay. I can't remember. We were talking, I think it was Top Shot, but then I messaged Steve after and we were talking, and then I asked him his opinion on AllDay, and he's like, dude, I'm super in, I'm bullish. Tom Brady's only $350 right now, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, all right, let's go. So Steve, my main goal is to get Courtney onto AllDay, because he is against dapper right now, and I'm
I have
trying
scars.
to get him.
I have scars. Okay, can we just say
trying
that
to
it's
get
not
him
blind?
into AllDay, and he's not budging. So maybe you can tell him why I consider bullish on AllDay.
Yeah, let me do it. And by the way, I get it. Like in the NFT space, usually when someone asks the question, like a lot of the times there's the rhetorical question. People are like, who hurt you? And the answer is almost always Dapper, because anybody who got into Top Shot in January or February is just, that is because I got in March, so I don't have that pain, right? So I get that. I mean, don't get me wrong. I had the experience of like pulling a moment from like an all-star pack and being like, this thing's worth $700 and that was worth like $7. But like, I get it. But here's my thesis on AllDay. So actually, real quick before I touch on that, I just wanted to hit something you said, Courtney, because I think that was really, really like insightful. I actually think that NFTs took off because of the pandemic and us being all home and having those, sense of community in those spaces. And just as a thing on me personally, like it's sort of my convergence because I love finance is interesting and I like people and community building. And it's one of the reasons actually I didn't say my first job out of college, I was a pro poker player for a year because like it just fits my like I can read people and I like the finance aspect and numbers and running it, but I also have that risk nature. So anyway, so I think you're spot on there. But NFL AllDay, here's my thesis. So right or wrong, the NFL is the most popular sport in the US. So Gallup has done a poll. 37% of Americans say their favorite sport is the NFL, is football. NBA is the next closest at 11%. So while NBA has a wider market share worldwide, it's more than 3 times as popular in the US. The US controls 25% of the world's gross domestic product. And when you look at the US, we are spenders. That's something we do. We're known for being spenders. And you can pull any number on sort of GDP and expenditure and see that. So my thesis along with that is that if it's 3x popular as NBA Top Shot is by all accounts, like if you got in not during that first initial pop, it's pretty successful, right? And I get people who got in during the initial pop, but at the very least, even if it's for a trade, NFL AllDay is due for a pop like that as it grows and scales in maybe season 2 or 3. Right now we're in the beta and you can get debuts for $4, right? Like the example I give is Sam Hubbard. So Sam Hubbard has a sack that essentially sealed it so that the Chiefs were going to go to overtime in the playoffs. That is his debut. It's a strip sack on Patrick Mahomes. And then the Chiefs had to kick a field goal. That debut is $6. So you can get that debut for $6. That's a historical moment that people remember. And the difference between sort of NFL and NBA to me is this clicked for me. I have a friend, he's a Rams fan. He pulled the Odell Beckham Jr. touchdown from the Super Bowl. He pulled a rare. And he says, I remember where I was, who I was with, and what I felt in that moment. And to me, the NFL has so much more power than the NBA for that. Because look, as much as I think a dope LeBron James dunk is a dope LeBron James dunk, and look, I'm a LeBron guy. I love him. Like I'm, from Cleveland. I don't know where I was when that happened. I don't know those moments. So you have the connectivity of those moments. You have the record-setting moments. So like the Brady debut, that's $350. That's when he sets the record for completions. He sets a completion record to Mike Evans on that play. To get that moment for $350, and granted, there's more supply, but that moment when the LeBron James debut on Top Shot, and that's his debut, and the LeBron James debut on Top Shot is $7,000. Like to me, there's a mismatch in the market there. And even if you normalize it for the actual supply, that debut should be a $700+ debut. So to me, it's like there's a lot of arbitrage opportunities I'm seeing. And I have a whole strategy, which I'm more than happy to get into clearly if we talk it through. But to me, it's like I look at the numbers, I look at the popularity in the US, and I look at the market opportunity and the arbitrage opportunity when if a guy scoring 3 points a game who has played one season in the NBA has his Top Shot S1 debut at $25+, and I can get a debut for Justin Jefferson for 50, like I'm going to take that all day. So I think that like, whether it's the right move or the wrong move, I am placing some bets on some bags in there, and I have a whole strategy formulating around it. So I talked a lot.
There's
Steve
nothing
is spitting right now. He is spitting.
There's nothing I love more than a great fundamental analysis with some numbers. Look, I don't know if he was reading off a chart or what, but
nope.
When you look at the total addressable market of sports fans and then how much people are spending on their sports memorabilia and stuff, I think there's a huge opportunity when, you know how they do those graphs with the concentric circles, the 2 circles that semi-overlap in the middle.
Venn diagrams.
The Venn diagrams. You've got NFL fans, and then you've got people who are tech savvy and are into crypto, and that little center part where they overlap is slowly growing. I think that the Cambrian explosion for NFL AllDay happens when that center part gets bigger. meaning like more NFL fans actually understand even like the most basic stuff, like how to create a wallet. I think Dapper did a great job of onboarding a ton of people just because of the way they set it up. So we got to tip our hat to them for that regardless. Like every third person I talked to, they made their way into NFTs through Dapper. But if they continue to do that, I think there's a good chance. I really do think there's a good chance. It's just, hey, the opportunity cost of waiting for that pop. That's my reservation. I don't know what you feel about that one though.
That's oh, go ahead, John.
I was just gonna say, believe it or not, Courtney and Steve, there's still people that don't even know that NFL AllDay is a product that are in the NFT ecosystem. Like people have been asking for like a sports NFT project. And I'm like, haven't you guys heard of NFL AllDay? And they're like, no, what's that? And then I go into this huge spiel about what NFL AllDay is. But I mean, if you possibly think that there's going to be a pop, this is for Courtney, then why wouldn't you get in earlier?
Because the opportunity cost of that time, if you don't understand the lag time, think about how fast stuff moves. Like OnChain Monkey, I don't know when it dropped, but like that's already a vintage. And how many years has it been out? Like, I don't even know.
A year.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It came out in September. So it's like, it's like, yeah. I mean, you're talking like months, but your point is actually really salient in the sense that, so I had a friend, and look, his hypothesis was wrong on this, but I understand. Actually, his hypothesis would have been right for him. I would have failed at this. So I had a conversation with him, and he's like, "Sell your Bored Ape," and I was like, "No." And he's like, "Sell it." I'm like, "Never." And he's like, and this is when it was like a 30 ETH floor or 60 ETH floor or whatever it was. And he's like, he's like, and this guy's a great flipper, and he's made millions. He's like, like he's the GOAT. Like, but he's like, I bet you could make double 60 ETH quicker than that Bored Ape that 60 ETH doubles. So like the opportunity cost of not getting into NFL AllDay, you could park your money somewhere else and potentially make more money. My big thing is we are all startup investors. We are all early seed investors when it comes to NFTs. We are all Series A angel investors funding these companies, betting on these people, betting on these founders. So my thing is, I'm terrible at flipping. Like I'm garbage at it. Whenever I try to do it, I end up just being real sad. So I try to find stuff where I have real good criteria. I feel real strong about it and have conviction. And I make a bet. And I'm saying that bet is going to be at least a year, if not 5 years. And so to me, I want to diversify where my money is so that while 90% of this may go to zero, I want to be in at half of that 10% so that when it pops, I'm there. And so to me, NFL AllDay is just a strategic bet to say, look, if I'm going to basically park 1 or 2 ETH essentially in NFL AllDay, I'm comfortable doing that, saying like, I park 1 or 2 ETH in way stupider stuff all the time. I all the time. Like I'm awful at this half the time. You know what I mean? It's like, I looked at my portfolio, I ran the numbers one time, and I think 92% of my portfolio value in NFTs was in like 8 NFT projects. So I've been doing this for a year, betting on all these things, doing all this degenerate stuff. And I've been successful like more or less 8 times out of God knows how many. But that's the idea of the angel investing. So to me, NFL AllDay is just another bet where I'm saying, if this thing pops and Tom Brady's debut goes from $350 to $3,500, I'm going to be really happy that I have 3 of them. So like, that's the idea, is that I'm kind of like placing my bets around, but I think your point's right. I think there's so many ways to win in this space. It's just, to me, about the self-awareness of knowing what you're good at. And I am garbage sauce at flipping. So I just can't do that. So that's just not my jam,
I love it. Garbage sauce.
Yeah, it's funny. I actually tried to get into OnChain Monkey. Whenever I see it, it kind of reminds me of the time where I didn't get in. I guess Gary V may have tweeted or mentioned it, and like it started running, and I was trying to get in, losing gas, and I just gave up. And then it becomes OnChain Monkey, and it hurts my soul. But coming from,
wait,
go ahead.
Can you, because it's one of the projects that if you're in it, you know about it. For people who are on the outside, they probably have no idea because it doesn't get the same mainstream attention that a Bored Ape or a Punks do, right? So could you talk about OnChain Monkey and what makes it such a cool project?
Yeah, it's dope. So like OCM is like a project that, so just to give you, I think there's a few different places I would approach it from. First, I'd start with our founders. So founder Danny Yang, it's an entirely Docs team. First founder, the CEO, is Danny Yang. he founded the Stanford Bitcoin meetup in 2013. And actually, and this is even more impressive to me than that, he presented NFTs as a solution to land titles to the president of Egypt in 2015. So like, I didn't know NFTs were a thing until a year ago. Homeboy is talking to the president of Egypt in 2015. He founded
work?
No, they didn't bite. Like NGMI, right? And so then you look at like his next venture. He founded MyCoin, which is the largest crypto exchange in Taiwan, still operational. So he's had successful businesses before. The COO, Amanda Terry, was a digital business executive at Twitter and NBC. And then the chairman, Bill Tai, was the first investor at Zoom. So we can thank him for this conversation right here. And is just an OG guy who's been in crypto for absolute years. So, total baller. And also, if you ever talk to Bill Tai, he's like, it's actually, again, I talked about y'all not being fair because you're athletic and smart and doing all this stuff. And like, I'm doughy and just barely into NFTs. And like Bill Tai, he's like in great shape, super smart. And when you talk to him, you feel like you're getting a warm hug. So like, that's the team that founded OnChain Monkey. The other things that are cool about it is that the tech is, so it looks like, people say, oh, OnChain Monkey, that looks like, the art's so simplistic. That's because Danny coded it into existence. So this is fully on-chain, meaning, and you guys know what that means, I'm sure, but for the audience, like, it's like, basically, it's like a cave drawing. That cave drawing will exist as long as the cave does. This will exist as long as the Ethereum blockchain does, right? It's out there. So it's fully on chain, and they deployed it in one transaction that had never been done before, a profile picture in one transaction. So I'll mess these numbers up, so don't quote me on these, but instead of like 6,000 ETH to deploy it on chain, it was like less than an ETH or something like that because they compressed it to one transaction. So the tech's cool. Doing good and doing well is something I mentioned earlier. So, we did the donation to Ukraine. We've done donations to Coral Vita, which is repairing coral reefs in the Caribbean, raised money through an Axie Infinity tournament for typhoon victims. So things like that are stuff that they believe in. So Bill Tai is a big believer that we could turn this time of sort of extreme greed and aggressive money into something good. So it's just something that we've been sort of believers in, as a company as well. And then the last thing is because people, aren't huge fans of the art. So there's this old trope back in the day when people would be like, you catch your kid smoking, you're like, oh, you want a cigarette? We're going to go out back and smoke the whole pack. Well, like we're sort of doing that with the art. It's like an old thing from like, my dad used to say like he had in like the, 70s or whatever. But basically point being, we're like, oh, you don't like the art. We're going to give you all the art you could ever take. And we've hired on designers who worked on Academy Award nominated films to work on our next collection, which is a version of this. So similar to the mutant serums, we airdropped these desserts. So we airdropped a donut, which is like our sort of M2. We airdropped a ice pop, which is like our M1. And then we airdropped these celestial cakes, which there are only 15 of. And those have sold for 65, 70, 75, and I think 80 ETH so far, because those will be one of ones. So the idea is like, we're creating this secondary collection, which will be a 20K collection. And these Hollywood designers, they're like absolute fire what they're designing. And they're taking the same rigor into it that they put in like, Rio and Ice Age and the Peanuts movie and stuff. So baller design team, good foundational group. So pretty cool. And then our investors, our investors are like Sebastian, the CEO of Sandbox, Charlie Lee, the founder of Litecoin. He's a big buyer. He bought one of those cakes at 65 ETH. Just a lot. Owen Wilson, the actor, random but true. Apollo Ono, the Olympian, again, random but true. So there's a lot of like kind of noteworthy investors and people within the founder of Second Life, and there's some other ones I'm leaving off, but pretty notable investor. Oh, the founder of Axie Infinity. So like a lot of big time investors and good investing money. Roham, obviously from Top Shot, is an investor. That's actually how it got popular. Roham tweeted about it the night that they did the free mint. It's got a good backing. It's got a good base. Cool company, well run, successful group. And the utility we're bringing to the group, and I haven't even gotten into that yet, is the DAO, which will come, and 50% of all the sales from OCM Karma will go to the DAO, which is the next set. So that's going to be super well funded. A lot coming down the pike, a lot of utility, fun deal going on. So it's a cool collection. It's a little bit slept on. It's been as high as I think 3 ETH, at about 1.5 right now. And I have, I think, like 6 and a bunch of desserts, because similar to the mutants, you can eat one of each type of dessert. So I have a K1, which is my ice pop, and then a K2, which is my donut. So I'm going to have each of them. I'm just going to create multitudes of these different types. So That's a lot, but that's kind of the project background.
Holy smokes. Yo, I had no idea that it was that deep. Like, I just thought it was cool because most NFTs, the metadata points to IPFS and you got a hyperlink to your image. And so that's the main knock on NFTs. People are like, yeah, well, you own a hyperlink. Haha, you bought a receipt. But it's like OnChain Monkey is literally on chain. And I didn't know the part about they did one transaction and it basically spit out the whole collection. That's crazy. Yeah. But it's the technology that I thought was the main thing, but it's obviously a lot deeper than that.
Did you say it was a free mint?
Yeah, it was a free mint. So, and that's the other interesting part. You talk about, you know, people brag about shareholder value. It was a free mint. So Flips Finance does, like, they analyze the last 100 trades of every collection. And unfortunately, 3 people have not gotten there. But at one point, 100 of our last 100 trades were profitable for people who had sold them. And the average profit made off an OCM is 2 ETH. So in the last 100 trades, currently 97 people have made money. So only 3 people have sold for less than they bought for. And those 97 people had an average gain of over 2 Ethereum. So, like, it's been a profitable, like, value creation collection. Those desserts that we airdropped, by the way, like similar to the serums, like those are going for, like I said, the cakes have been heavy, but you know, those have been going for like over an ETH at times. So a lot of shareholder value created, low listings. Even before OpenSea did the great delisting, when they kind of did their migration, there were still only ever at any given time 3 or 4% listed. Now, I was talking to this guy, Michael Batnick, who's a traditional finance guy. I was interviewing him on a Twitter Spaces, and he was like, look, I didn't know anything about NFTs. He's like, but I know what supply and demand means. He's like, I looked on OpenSea, apes 15%, subducks considered diamond handed 12%, OCM 3%. He's like, I bought like 4, because he just like looked at it from like a sheer supply and demand perspective, which, and I love Michael because he's funny, because like he's someone who doesn't mind admitting when he's wrong. And he's like, I didn't buy NFTs. I didn't buy into Bitcoin. I do now. And I went out and bought them. So yeah, so that's that's kind of a story about kind of the community and what they stand for. But yeah, there's a lot of stories to be told there. And I think it's easy to get lost in the sea of NFT projects because there's a million. And I think a lot of people are trying to mint and flip the next thing and dump their bags on other people, which is also like, I hate that, because anytime you're dumping your bag on someone else or someone there's a human on the other end of that transaction that pisses me off. Like I care about human beings. And so, I think people kind of ignore ones like that. And there's a lot of other collections I'm a huge fan of with both low floors and great founders that I think could be higher, because people are just chasing the next, whatever that thing is, that's going to flip for a lot of money.
Yeah. And no, that's a great project. You threw salt in the wound, but it's cool.
Why? Because someone told you to buy it and you didn't buy it, or you tried?
Gary V was talking about them, and I couldn't get it because Gary V just had to talk about it. Yeah,
you gotta pump that. So look, the alpha in the gas wars is the Ethereum Next Block app from Block Native. Like, that's what you need in your life. You put that thing. The Block Native, look it up. It's an app. It's like you put it on the it's like a plugin, and that tells you what gas is, and they can tell you exactly the numbers you put in your MetaMask to have your transaction done in like 3 seconds. Now, look, I got burned on this one, but everybody was trying to mint the Vayner Sports Pass from AJ Vaynerchuk this past week when AJ dropped that thing. I got 2 of them because I knew exactly how to set my gas. Now, look, it was a big fail for me currently because I paid 1.5 ETH for 2 of them after gas, and the floor is currently like 0.4. So I could have gotten way more for that. So I lost that trade. But like, also, I think it's important to talk about both your wins and your losses. But like, I lost that trade. But like, if you get Ethereum Next Block app from Block Native, it tells you on the left, it's like 99% probability in less than 15 seconds if you set the top number to this and the bottom number to this. So I just use that, and I always go a little bit over what it says just in case the gas war kicks up a little bit. You'll win every time.
Love it. I've never heard of that. And I wouldn't consider that a loss, because bet on the Vaynerchuks, man. I'm sure that floor will raise eventually.
Oh yeah, I got a V friend. I got a rare brave bison in the drop. I had a V friend before I had a Bored Ape. I had a hot streak. I'll tell you what though, like, because I'll never do this again. Because like, again, as much as I talk about like my biffs and how much I fall on my face, I looked back at my OpenSea because I was curious, like, when did I get my V friend? When did I get my ape? I had a streak where I minted like a VFriend, 3 Punks comics, which, you know, went way up, bought my Bored Ape, and then bought another Punks comics. And those are my transactions all in a row. So you're talking about like 100 ETH worth of or whatever it is worth of value in those 5 trades. And then I was like a donkey. Like, it's funny, like, because like my buddy was like, are you trying to hide that pixel pet below it or whatever it was? I'm like, whoa, look, come on, shots fired. Like, it was like a pixel dog or something. But like, as much as I'm a donkey so much of the time, like, I'll never run that hot again. I mean, that's like an absurd amount of run. But yeah, I got a VFriend because exactly what you said. Gary V has told you how many times that something's going to be successful and been right. And he's sitting there telling everybody, like, buy these because I'm telling you I'm going to add value. So I bought one. I should have bought several. But I bought a rare Brave Bison. Again, you talk about thesis not working out. I could have bought 2 commons or 1 rare. And my thesis was the rare had this metadata thing on OpenSea that said it was going to give you a better access in the conference. So I'm like, that's going to hold up more than 2x value. So I'm going to buy that. It hasn't. It's only held up about like a 2 ETH value over as it's risen on the commons. But I mean, I'm not sad like about having a VFriend. Don't get me wrong. But like, again, thesis not playing out. So when you, I guess, Courtney, take that in consideration when you're hearing my NFL all day thesis, is that I'm very often wrong and was wrong on that one.
Hey, but you know what? You gotta, if you just, you know, rolling the dice, shaking them up and letting them go, it's one thing, but at least you have a thoughtful approach to what you do so that you can look back and analyze. I have a good question for you. You found a handful that did really, really well and overperformed. Often that's all it takes. But what are some of the criteria that you look for in a good project?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things about that. So I'll get into my criteria I look for, but the first thing I want to say is that, like, I just try to surround myself with people who are smarter than me. So what I do is I talk to a lot of people and say, like, one of my good friends, his name is this guy, Boomer LFG is his handle on Twitter. And he Life Force Games is his company that he's just starting now, but he owns Land Vault, which is like the premier metaverse developer. Like, Sandbox throws them business. They've got 50 plus Sandbox developers. So if I want to know about metaverse, I talk to Boomer. I don't know about metaverse, but I know he does. And I'll try to corroborate it with other people. Like, not that I don't believe Boomer, but I like to get multiple opinions. So the very first thing I do is that, like, when I got into Top Shot, I have like 4 friends who were like, had spreadsheets on Top Shot. I'm like, dope. Like, what do you think about this? Right. And I would ask them questions, and, you know, we all were wrong because Top Shot, but we did our best. But like, you basically go to, you know, experts and ask them a question. So that's number one. I try to surround myself with people who are smart and know what they're doing. But my personal criteria is I bet on founder and team, number one. I always bet on people. You know, there's a phrase from Woody Hayes, you win with people. That's one of my life pillars. You win with people. End of the day, whether you're hiring, whether you're betting on a project, whether you're betting on a company, you win with people. So number one, who is the team and the founder? Number two is what utility is they're promising? Because if I've already believed in the people and I know the people are smart, then I believe they could probably deliver on the utility. So do I want that? And is it interesting or do I not? Right? Like, there's people who say like, oh, you should buy this project or that project. I'm like, I don't care about the utility. I don't need a project with another metaverse promise. So my thing number two is utility. Thing number three, if it's an established group, is a community. So I don't mind paying more on secondary if it means that I know that I'm going to get into a community that's dope. That's why I got into the apes. That's why I got into the gutter cats. That's why I've gotten into a variety of communities. I paid 2.75 for my gutter cat, which was a high price at the time, but now it's like a 8 or 10 ETH floor, and it was the right bet because I knew the community was dope. It's the same reason why when I buy like a stock, like when I bought Facebook stock, people thought they're like, oh, you were looking at 35, you bought at 50. Do you feel dumb? I'm like, well, I didn't buy it to go from 35 to 50. I bought it to go from 50 to 200. So like, yeah, so that's my thought there. And then the last thing I look at is art. Now, don't get me wrong, if I'm buying art for the sake of art, and I try to set aside money to support small artists. So I try to set aside, I'm trying to actually make a practice that my one buddy does, which is set aside 10% of any money I make and use that to support an artist. But like, art's my fourth criteria because I tend to look for communities and value and things like that. So it's founder, utility, community, and art in that order. But on the art thing, just as a side note, like, so cool when you learn things. Like, our friend Morgan discovered an artist the other day, and then a bunch of us just aped into this guy's art, like, live on this show. Found out this guy's not super well to do, and we basically like paid for this guy's rent for like 4 months by just buying his art that wasn't selling. And that's cool. And like, to me, so like, I want to make sure I'm supporting artists along the way, because that's one of the powers of NFT is that it helps creators get closer to their fans. It helps fans get closer to the creators, and it helps support people without these middlemen like an art gallery or something taking a large percentage. But yeah, just your question, it's like founder, team, high number one, big gap, utility, community, art.
And coming from your background in PR and marketing, you know, a lot of the best projects out right now, they have really good marketing. For a project that's starting out, like, do you have any, like, I guess, like, any advice for them, like, as far as like marketing, like maybe they don't have that much money to start off with? Like, what's the best thing that they could do to kind of like, you know, get eyes on their project?
Yeah. So I think there's a couple ways. I think number one, and this is how I advise people, whether they're growing their personal brand or their actual brand, is appreciate the people who interact and follow with you. I try to reply to every single tweet if I can. I try to have a conversation, because if somebody's read the dumb stuff I put online and replied to it, then I feel like I owe it to them to have a conversation and be like, yo, like, you know what I mean? Like they've replied to me. They've taken the time out of their day to read what I had to say. So like, that's cool. So I tell people, I don't care. And that's my philosophy. I don't care if you have one follower. I don't care if there's one person tuning in my live stream. There's somebody who was like interviewing me for this ape thing, and she was like apologizing because like 2 people showed up. She's like, well, you can wait for more. I'm like, no, I'm happy to be talking to you. And I am so grateful that you want to hear what I have to say. Like, let's roll this thing. I don't care who shows up. And I think like number one is like, appreciate the people who are in your community who care, whether it's 1 person, 2 person, or 2,000 people. So that's like advice. Absolute number one is gratitude towards that. Advice number 2 is find like-minded people to associate with. So find the vibe of your project and have an actual brand. Don't try to be appealing to everybody. Find who you are. So like there's communities like Sup Ducks, Thingdoms, Threelanders, Breadverse is coming out. That's one of them. They got this weird drug-inspired type vibe. They're a fun community. They do hilarious things. They have like prank phone calls and stuff they do on nights that are hilarious. They just have this weird shenanigan, like childlike vibe in the best way possible. Like I love them. These are my friends. They find other communities like that. And they threw this like badass party in LA when they did NFT LA. They got together. Find those and associate with them. Be like, yo, I want to be a part of what you're doing. Can I offer allow list spots to your community? Because your community vibes with your community. Because when you're putting together an allow list, I don't want you, like, don't have people grind for it. Don't have people in your Discord. Like, just find the people that you want to invite to your party and invite them to your party. And so like my 2 biggest pieces of advice are authentically care about your community, try to provide disproportionate value where you can to them and show them you care, and then find like-minded projects and use them as mentor projects. Have those conversations and vibe your community. Because most of the time right now, we're at this weird time where everybody's accessible. Like I can't AJ Vaynerchuk did that drop. You know what happened after that drop? Like a lot of people fudded the drop because there was a huge gas war. I sent a message to AJ. I was like, congrats on the drop. No drop goes perfect. Appreciate how you're handling it. Can't wait to see what you build. He responded. In what world am I going to get that response? The world is so small in NFTs right now. True. So like shoot your shot, talk to the people who are like-minded, and use those connection points to find people that you want to vibe with. Don't just shoot for like cool cats because they have a high floor, or apes because they have a high floor. Shoot for the ones that you authentically connect with. So those are my pieces of advice. It's not like tactical marketing, but that's the high level stuff.
Big gems. I like it. That's solid too, because I feel like the stuff that I've gotten involved with, I haven't done as much on the NFT side. I'd probably say handful of projects, but the ones that I'm deep in and that I've actually done well with, it was noticeable that you could actually you wouldn't feel bad being in there for a long time because you fit, you know, and that's, I think it has to be part of it. Otherwise you're going to jump out before you hit the point where it was worth it for you. I think
your vibe attracts your tribe. Your vibe attracts your tribe. Sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
Most of these things don't go straight up, right? I mean, you played poker, so I guess you got legit actual diamond hands. But I don't know, if you're in it and you love the group and you spend time there, intrinsically motivated to spend time there because you actually connect with people, I think that would help during times when financially it doesn't look like it might have been the best decision also.
Yeah. I honestly like, I don't check floors on projects that I like, right? Like you can go in with don't get me wrong. Like I can go in with the intention, if I get in an allow list, like if I had gotten on the invisible friends allow list, like I'm minting that thing was a 0.2 mint or something, and it was like a 13 ETH floor. Like that's leaving my wallet so quick, you have no idea, right? Like that's fine. But like if I'm trying to go and join, like there's like, again, like I mentioned subducts, like I'm always gonna have a subduct. Like Frankie, like again, slept on projects. Frankie is the CEO, like the founder, like dude helped bring VFriends public. He's friends with like Pharrell, like he knows what he's doing, and he's a great designer, and he worked at Dapper, and he worked at all these other great companies. Like smart guy, like betting on that guy. Community's dope, always will be in it. There's a community called Goats, which has like a floor of like 0.12, 0.13. Coolest dudes, awesome, like awesome group of dudes, like super friendly, do really fun engage. They did a thing. They have a secondary token called Kids. So goats are like these, like, you know, like actual kind of adult looking goats. And they made these kids. These things are straight from the Cute Factory. They're like little, like baby, like, you know, kids that like are like little baby goats that are, and they were working on selling them out and they weren't selling out. They did this thing called the Kids Mint Draft, where they gave you a discounted rate. They minted a bunch of them and then they gave you a draft order, and everybody got in a room and was like, I was playing that like draft sound from ESPN. I kept like sending it to YouTube, like do 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 do, like every time there was a pick coming. But it's like, how fun is that, right? And I'm like, I'm having a good time. I don't care what the floor price is. I just want to get in on this draft. I just want to like I want to just talk some trash about like, I want to swoop something that somebody wanted to get and they should have traded up, right? It's like, that's what you want to be doing, right? And so to your point, like when the community's vibing, I don't care about the like floor price or whatever. I just care about like the friends I'm hanging out with and the time I'm having and the utility they're providing me. And like, if I'm getting to go to cool get-togethers and awesome things, like, I don't care. Like that's utility. Like the utility is like, and utility is like more than just like the price goes up. It's, you know, the fun you have along the way. So like, to me, it's like, I'm in a lot of communities like that. So I think you're spot on.
It's true. And having a strong community, being part of a strong community, as someone who's invested in the community or a founder, I've seen, you know, communities hold a project up when there's been FUD or, you know, when things aren't going the way that they're supposed to. And I think like that kind of solidifies, like you hear it a lot as far as, oh, I look for a community, and some people, they mean it, and some people, they just use it to like market or whatever they're doing. But like when you look at the foundation, that community is the foundation. You know what I mean? Without them, like there's no project. So like everything you're saying like makes a lot of sense, because like Courtney said, a lot of the projects I'm in that are doing well, they have great community. They have founders that are executing on, you know, whatever they say they're going to do. And, you know, people are patient when that happens, because a lot of people forget like these are businesses and brands, you know what I mean? And those take time to build and develop. But in the NFT space, we want everything like so fast. So community is super important.
Hey, Steve, so what are you excited about that's coming up? What are you working on? What's the next? You know, crypto moves so damn fast. I can't even ask you like what the next 6 months looks like, but what's out in the windshield when you look at the road?
Yeah, so I'll give you like a macro and a micro answer, just because I'm like shiny object. Like I'm always looking at the next thing like immediately, but then I also try to like think the macro picture. So like micro, I'm way excited about Moonbirds. So if y'all know who Kevin Rose is, Kevin Rose and you know his co-founder Ryan Carson, they have this like amazing project called Proof Collective, and Proof Collective from Kevin Rose has like a 95 ETH floor or something. And they're dropping a PFP and there's a raffle for it because they're trying to do it fair. And so I'm entering, my wife's entering. It's a 2.5 ETH mint, which sounds super high. I promise you that thing will have a 10 ETH floor the second you mint it. So I'm excited about that because I want to get into it. And by the way, I'm not selling because they airdrop things that are worth more than that. But like, that's the micro. It's like, I want to get a Moonbird and I'm not going to. There's like a 0% chance. And by the way, it sucks because I can acknowledge two things at the same time, which are one, they're doing it in a fair way where they're making it a raffle because they don't want people doing a gas war. They don't want people spending like 7 ETH on gas. They don't want it being botted. That's absolutely the right play. And two, I'm salty because I can win a gas war. And so I absolutely would get like 3 of these things if they were just letting us go to a gas war. So like I can admit both those things. So that's something I'm excited about in the short term. Long term, I'm excited about the applications of NFTs in the next 18 to 24 months that are going to fundamentally change our lives. So, you know, whether it's sports tickets that are going to fundamentally change forever, or, you know, my favorite example is, you know, music, where if I'm an artist, like, you know, Taylor Swift's re-releasing all her music because the record company, she had to dispute there. The Backstreet Boys were like the biggest artists in the world, making less than 100K a year because of a skeezy manager and a record label. Well, if Taylor Swift sold 20,000 NFTs for $500 each when she was 16 playing honky tonks just coming up, and I bought 2 of them, and she says, for this, you get backstage access, you get exclusive merch, you get early tickets, then Taylor Swift becomes the biggest star in the world. I profit with Taylor Swift. My $500 makes $50,000. She self-funds $10 million and hires her own team and creates her own pay structure. I am able to, she keeps adding utility to those because she gets a secondary royalty every time they're sold. Everybody wins except for those middlemen. I'm excited for that. I'm excited to be able to buy a car transparent. I suck at buying cars. I can't negotiate. I walk in, I pay too much money. I buy the stupid warranty I don't need. It's like being able to buy a car online and everything's in the contract, and I see how much a blue Toyota Camry from 2017 sold for. What's the floor? What's the ceiling? What's the last sale? And then it's in the contract that it's delivered to my house the next day, like Amazon. Like, I'm excited about that. I'm excited about medical. This sounds so nerdy. I'm excited about medical records. Right now, people swab their mouth. They send it to 23andMe, and 23andMe sells your data on the back end for millions of dollars. There's people creating products where I can swab my mouth. It's on a privatized blockchain, and I can opt into studies, and I can monetize my own health. Like, I can decide I want to opt into a study because they have my DNA on a privatized blockchain, or they can predict what disease I'm going to be at risk to get because everything's on a blockchain together, on a hidden blockchain. They can say, you're at a 77% risk for colon cancer. Let's start screening you early, right? Based on your medical record. Like, that's what excites me the most about NFTs is not, you know, don't get me wrong. I'm excited for like 8 Fest. Last year, I was 25 feet from Lil Baby in a private concert. That's dope. You know, that's amazing. But like, I saw Chris Rock not getting slapped 15 feet from me, right? That's cool. But like, and I'm excited for that too, but like the long-term applications of the tech is what excites me the most and what venture capitalists are working on. And that's what I'm most excited for.
That's crazy. And you know, Alfa Romeo, or whatever they called, they got a SUV. I don't know if it's out yet or if it's coming out, but there was a news release earlier this year. It has a NFT that comes with the car when you buy it that keeps a history of important metrics like the mileage, the oil checks, service, all that kind of stuff. So people can't roll back the gauge and just pull one over on you. So it's closer than a lot of people think, man.
People sleep on how quick tech moves. I mean, that's the thing. Like when I tell people, and it's aged a little bit now because we're a little further in the future, but I remember in like 20, you know, back when y'all were in college, and I'm older than you, but like back when you're in college, I'd be like, hey, when do you think the iPhone came out? And people would be like, oh, 1995 or something. It's like, dude, it came out in 2007 or like 2008. And like the first iPhone, like when it came out, again, like I'll date myself. And again, you may be familiar, so sorry if this like isn't just me being like, but like have you seen Independence Day with Will Smith? You familiar?
Hell yeah.
Okay, yeah, that movie's fire. But anyway, there's probably a joke to be made here about the alien and Chris Rock. But anyway, like Will Smith, like when he went to like into the spaceship with Jeff Goldblum or whatever, I remember the aliens had this like touchscreen technology that activated everybody. Everyone's like, whoa, mind blown. That's crazy tech. That was like 1996 or something. 10 years later, we had an iPhone and we had the same amount of computing power that's more than sent people to the moon in our hands. And so people like underestimate and sleep on like Moore's law of how technology like doubles last year, doubles from there this year, and just is exponentially moving. And I think you're right. Like, I think like having like blockchain transparency with like used cars and being able to buy and sell them. And then like, I don't have some dealer who's saying like, oh, I got this for $5,000 yesterday, so I'm selling to you for $6,000, so I'm barely making margin. It's like, well, it says in the blockchain you got it for $2,000, so you're a liar. So like, I think there's just like opportunity there. And then like the work on it and all that stuff, like there's just so many. That's what I try to tell people is like, when I get into the technology stuff, it's like, you gotta like realize like the tech is what matters here. As cool as it is what we're all playing around with and making money being early, and that's cool. And like, look, there's a place for that, and that's awesome. Like, it's the tech that's going to act. We won't even say NFT in 10 years. We're just going to say tickets. We're just going to say buying cars. We're just going to say whatever the marketplace is that we buy things on. Like, it's not going to be about NFTs, non-fungible token. Like, how many times do we say, hey, did you go to the World Wide Web? You know, like, we don't say that anymore, right? It's just like, it's just like, hey, check out my website. You know, like, it's just, so I think like the vernacular will move, and it's so exciting to me.
So, I mean, you dropped like way too many gems right there. So that was freaking awesome. But 2 questions before we wrap up. Will we be seeing an NFTBark NFT collection? 1, and 2, NFL AllDay packs drop tomorrow. Are you buying?
I am 1000% buying the NFL AllDay packs tomorrow. Now, I will say, my strategy, again, numbers based. Courtney, you'll appreciate this. I will not buy a rare pack. So rare packs, what was the cost on those again, Juwan? Do you remember? Are they 500 bucks?
Before I thought, no, weren't they 250?
Were they 250?
Yeah, 250. It's 50 and 250.
50 and 250. Okay, yeah. So anyway, I ran the numbers on the packs, and $250 packs, you're going for a legendary or rare moment. So getting a legendary is a very low percentage, like below 1% or something like that. And then getting a rare, you're probably going to get one in a legendary or in one of those packs. But there was only 15 rares, last I checked, that were over that $250 mark. So that means I'm rolling the dice to get a less than 1% chance at a legendary, or trying to get one of 15 rares. That math ain't mathin'. So I'm not going to get the rare packs if they're dropping those, or the exclusive packs. But those $50 packs are almost positive EV every single time. Like I said, like, you pull a Justin Jefferson for $50, like, it's selling for more on the aftermarket. So like, to me, like, you're going to get debuts, you're going to get those. So I'll 100% buy those. And I just went on as far as like an NFT, I don't have that kind of sauce. I can't drop an NFT project. Like, I will support all day long, and I have friends that, like, I'll support their projects, and I'll consult, and I'll do all sorts of stuff. But I don't know, like, I've thought about it, but like, my big thing is I want to know what value I can actually bring to the world that's not there. Like, I don't want to just do it because it's to get me. Like, I don't want to cash grab. Even if I have the best of intentions, I don't want to do it. Like, I want to be like, what value do I bring to the world? To me, I'm more prone, like, where you would see me do an NFT project, for example, and this is like, this might happen, so this is probably some alpha, and Scott will probably kill me. But like, my NFT project, if I dropped it, would be, I try to write the definitive first book on NFTs with my buddy, and we somehow like have like rarity drops in there where it's like, you could, like, the NFT will have rarity drops, and like the highest rare will get you on your NFT featured on the cover. Another one will get it featured in the book. Like, that's the type of NFT project I'll drop, is I'll write a book on NFTs, and you'll be, if you have the IP rights to your alien boy or your goats, boom, and you got the top NFT, it's going on the cover, right? Like, stuff like that is like what I would do, where I think I bring value and actually provide something, versus like a 10,000 project or something else. I would rather support them. The other one I'll say, and I'll just kind of like give myself like a, shameless plug here, is that my brother is an avid supporter of childhood cancer. I won't get into like the sad story. Like, my brother, he's a reporter. His daughter passed away of brain cancer before a year old. He actually had never run a competitive race before, and he ran the Boston Marathon last year and finished in about a 10-minute mile average. And that's why stopping to take pictures. Like, he's a monster. He's an absolute beast. But like, he's raised like over $1 million to fight childhood cancer. If I did an NFT project that was like really big, it would be all for raising money for Team Beans. Like, it would be 1000% that. So like, those are the areas where I'd consider entering that arena. I don't, like, never say never, but I don't feel like I'd enter in like a founder capacity in the way that we know it today. I would just think like, where do I actually provide value that people will want, instead of like trying to create a marketplace for myself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that does make a lot of sense. And shout out to your brother. That's huge. Sorry for his loss. I truly think, whatever you end up doing, it's going to be great. You guys have your Twitter spaces, and you provide so much knowledge. I don't even think you guys realize how much knowledge you provide people. And we need more people like you, like Captain, who are doing those things and genuinely want to see people do well. Because one of the main reasons why we even started this podcast was because we were tired of hearing, do your own research, and we want to give people the ability to have some research done for them. You know what I mean? In an educational way that they can understand, hear cool stories from people doing dope things in the space, NFT space, So we're super, super honored to have you on. We're a brand new podcast. Like, it's been like a month and we've just been grinding this thing out. We've had super great guests just from being in Twitter spaces and networking and just being good people. So we're super happy to have you. Let the people know where they can find you. You can plug in.
I made a mistake and I accidentally kicked NFTBark off the video, so I apologize. JB, tell them where they can catch up with him and laugh about my bonehead play.
Yeah, you guys can follow Steve at NFTBark. He's also the director of marketing at MetaGood NFT. It's spelled exactly how it sounds. And also give Degen Network a follow. They do a Twitter space every morning at I think it's 8 a.m. Eastern. That's the Degen Network, DGEN Network. And tune in. They have a lot of educational guests on, alpha, all types of stuff. So catch up with them and stay up to date.
Do you think Degens really wake up at 8 in the morning?
Hey, these ones do.
Educationally inspired. Anyways, man, yeah, that was a fire episode. Appreciate you guys for tuning in all the way to this point. If you haven't already, like, subscribe. If you're on Spotify, rate. And this is First Class.
Peace.